The United States remains in the news with President Donald Trump issuing an executive order calling for an end to dangerous, demeaning, and immoral diversity, equity, and inclusion schemes. He also criticized the service held at the Washington National Cathedral after he was called out during a sermon. Right Reverend Marian Edgar Bard asked President Trump for mercy, citing feelings of fear among LGBTQ and immigrant communities. Shortly after being sworn in as U.S. President on Monday, Mr. Trump said he would make it official policy that there are only two genders, male and female. Well, let's talk some more about this on the more recent policies put in place by Donald Trump. And joining us is an immigration lawyer, Andrew Thomas. He joins us via Zoom from Boston in Massachusetts. Thank you very much, Mr. Thomas, for joining us. It's the second full day of the Trump administration. And of course, the president has declared a state of emergency at the southern border, for instance. What does this mean for the many people, perhaps millions, who are seeking to make America home?
Well, thank you very much for that question. There's no doubt every country, including the United States, have a right to secure its borders. But when it is enshrined in the Constitution that the United States is home to anybody who knocks, there should be realistic ways to let people in. This is not the time to apportion blames, but I believe the Trump administration, in living up to its mantra of making America great again, should still not lose its humanity, because many of those people who are at the border knocking to come in have valid reasons to travel thousands of miles or kilometers and show up in the United States. It might not just be in pursuit of happiness, but also in pursuit of safety, because many people who are granted asylum have a valid story why they had to leave all they know and show up in a foreign country and a foreign culture and turn that place to home. So in as much as the Trump administration says it wants to secure the southern border, we shouldn't lose our humanity doing that.
All right. And of course, also he's called for an end to birthright citizenship. As an immigration lawyer, do you suppose there is any respite for persons who this law might affect?
Well, for now, the uncertainty is there, but what is enshrined in the Constitution cannot be changed by the stroke of a pen. Mr. Trump is an elected president. He's not a king. The United States doesn't want a monarchy. So that's why over 24 states and counting and immigration advocacy groups are already in court to test the validity of the executive action. In as much as they have a right to seek an interpretation of the 14th Amendment, it states clearly on paper, Section 1, that all persons born or naturalized is a citizen of the United States or the states where they reside. Mr. Trump believes that he can sign an order saying that is not possible. And he even takes it a step further. It discriminates against women who are temporarily in the United States in lawful status. So if you are a student, an international student, for example, you get pregnant, you give birth to a baby. That baby is not a United States citizen, but you were in America lawfully. So the executive order doesn't just affect people who are not here in lawful status. It also even affects people who are here temporarily doing business, studying, or for pleasure. So it now criminalizes getting pregnant. So it doesn't just cover the fact that people are undocumented. If you are here on a student visa, you get pregnant, you run the whole term for 9 months, give birth to a baby, that baby is not a U.S. citizen. That's why people, the attorney generals of 24 states and counting, are testing that executive action in court. And ultimately, the Supreme Court later in the year, hopefully, will take the matter, because it's a burning question, and settle it.
How effective do you suppose the advocacy by, the immigration team, for instance, you're talking about some immigration lawyers also taking this up. How effective could their advocacy be, considering that at the moment, for instance, the Republicans actually have the majority in Congress?
Well, it's okay that Congress they have a majority, the Republican Party has a majority, And it's also okay that America is a country of laws and order. If the president believes he's right, everybody will go to court and the court will settle it either way or the other. So if Congress can find a way to make meaningful immigration law and the DHS can make meaningful policies, the court will settle this matter. It's already in court and it will play out, even though people's lives will be on hold, but hopefully it will be settled as soon as possible.
Let's talk about another controversial one. The president actually spoke about this during the campaign trail, and it's now come into effect. It says, he's directing all federal diversity, equity, and inclusion staff, the DEI staff, to be put on paid leave and eventually laid off. What does this mean for individuals who had fled their homes and countries to seek asylum? You were talking about that earlier, in the U.S., because it initially supported the DEI.
The Supreme Court is clear that love is love. So, and even though the Supreme Court doesn't recognize affirmative action in its decisions based on university admissions, for example, America is a country that is tolerant, that is welcoming, that is accepting. So even though this administration has ruled out diversity, equity, and inclusion as policy, people are still human in the United States. The beauty of the United States is that people treat people as people. Nobody judges you how you look, how tall you are, who you choose to love, or what you choose to prefer. So ultimately, humanity will prevail. Mr. Trump has a right to issue policies, but ultimately, the people occupying or executing those policies are human beings. There are people who have husbands who don't fit a typical definition of husbands. There are people who have children who don't fit the typical definition of children, but they still love them. So ultimately, while government might not recognize how people choose to live their lives, those who are supposed to execute the policies are human beings, and they will still be humane ultimately.
Well, we'll wait to see, how it goes. And if we may just quickly talk about, that sermon from Bishop Marian Bard, where she made a passionate plea to the president to be considerate. She mentioned different categories of people, the poor, those who are picking the plant, who might not even be citizens, but who are offering very essential service in the U.S. And of course, she also spoke about the LGBTQ community. Well, President Trump didn't seem to really align with that sermon, and he's described it in different words, including the fact that it's not interesting. What do you make of that development where the pulpit sort of became an advocacy point?
Well, it's not out of place to speak truth to power, and I think it's commendable that the minister of God was able to speak truth to power. But ultimately, every human is valuable in the United States. Those who are not documented in 2022 paid taxes to the tune of almost $100 billion. If you go into a store in almost all states in the United States, you pay sales tax. Nobody tries to find out whether you are here in lawful status or you are undocumented. Ultimately, the government has a right to fashion out an immigration policy, but for those who are contributing in making America great as it is already, as far as I'm concerned, those people also have a right to exist, pursue happiness, pursue their aspirations. So we have to find a way ultimately to appreciate these people who may not have a document showing that they are here in lawful status. They're already here. They are contributing to the economy one way or another, taking jobs nobody wants to take, paying taxes.
Well, let's talk
America
about...
is home to them already, and we have to find a way to incorporate them so that all of us can make America great as it is already.
All right, let's talk about students. America is quite famous for scholarships, and definitely many people had looked forward to, applying, and perhaps that could lead to some form of permanent residency there. But does it appear, following this announcement, that many international students will still be interested in studying in the USA?
Well, I'm a living example. You don't let any policy discourage you. If you believe a United States university will add value to your career, go for it. If you believe you deserve a scholarship, apply for it. If you believe you deserve immigration benefits in the United States, apply for it. America is a country of laws governed by laws. And regardless of whatever policy government puts in place, as long as you play by the rules, you would win.
You make a profound statement, and which is about playing by the rules. Supporters of President Trump have said that the president is not against migration or immigration, as it were, but he's against illegal migration. He wants that whatever happens is vetted, it follows due process. Where do you stand on this? How do you see it?
Where I stand on this matter is there should be a reasonable and predictable pathway to relocate to the United States. As I speak to you now, the only certain path to move to the United States is through direct family ties. I didn't have family members to come before I came to the United States. Many people have that same story. But as it is now, there is no sure path for you to move to the United States. The government, especially Congress, should fashion out a predictable way to move to the United States, gain residency, and possibly become a citizen. It's not clear now. That's why people are rushing in through any means possible, cooking up stories to come into the United States. As long as policy is not clear, people will still act regardless. So it's incumbent on the Trump administration to say, this is how we want you to come to the United States. It's not enough to block people from coming. Those who want to come, create a very predictable pathway for them to come to the United States.
Let's get a word of advice for people out there who, are seeing this as a big challenge and do not know how to surmount it.
Well, as I said, if you want to come to the United States, don't let one policy or one man discourage you. Do what you have to do. If you can do it yourself, do it yourself. If you need to hire a lawyer, by all means do that. But don't let somebody copy your dreams and aspiration. I was denied visa many times. It didn't discourage me from coming here to make a living. I'm a Nigerian American. I don't deny that. I'm in America for economic necessity. I love America. America gave me everything I want. But I'm still a Nigerian, just like every other person who showed up here. The question is, when did you show up? I showed up in the 21st century. The others may have showed up 400 years. We are all Americans.
All right, then. Andrew Thomas is an immigration lawyer. Thank you very much for sharing with us on World Now.
Thank you for having me.
Well, you're watching World Now. We'll take a moment. When we come back, we have more updates, including on very dangerous winds and